Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Two Pros podcast. Today, we're going to look at a little bit of something different and a question that I think a lot of coaches are posed with of how do I take my practice range game to the golf course? As usual, joined by Gareth. How are you, pal?
Yeah, really good, mate. Thank you. Really good.
I think this is, like I say, one of the questions that we probably do get asked a lot.
Mhm.
We do lessons on the range, on the putting green where there's not too much pressure. As
Mm.
soon as that pressure starts to come in, pop a card in somebody's hand, it can start to crumble. So we're going to kind of give a few points to combat that and ultimately help people's game on the course.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that you've hit the nail on the head, Joe, there. That when people ask me that question of how can why do I practice really well, but then when I go into the course, it goes to pot. It's because you're not putting yourself under pressure on the driving range.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I think when you look at practice as a whole, compared to on the course,
Mm.
they are two completely different things. So it's great if you can go to the range, block practice your 107 irons,
Mm.
because you could be the best block practicer the world has ever seen.
Mm.
You go to the course, you might not hit a 7 iron for 8 holes. And then when you do, it's nothing like the one you practiced on the range.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really important one that we're going to kind of delve into tonight to give people a couple of different methods to improve.
Yeah, yeah, and for me, I think what you've got to do is almost practice warm up structure for the golf course as you do when you're practicing. So going through different routines on the driving range, so having a consistent warm up process. Both of us have got kind of weighted warm up clubs that we use. It's something that I'd recommend. Do you recommend, Joe, just to kind of use to get your body in preparation, get yourself ready?
Yeah, massively. I think both of us kind of grew up at courses that had got a short game area, but maybe not a range. And I think for 90% of people, it is going to be quite literally rock up on the car park,
Mm-hmm.
go change your shoes, grab a coffee with the guys, go play golf.
Mm-hmm.
So that warm up needs to be effective, but not time consuming. So
Yeah.
I think and also it needs to be as consistent to the range as it does the course.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you say, those weighted clubs, if you've got a net by the first tee, just go through and hit a couple of clubs just to warm up and then get yourself into that frame of mind to be swinging the golf club.
Yeah, some research was done a few years ago, and they said if you don't practice or have a structured session before you play golf, on average, it's going to take you 5 holes to warm up.
Yeah, and truthfully, I can believe that from my own game. I've played a number of courses where you rock up and you're on holiday, you're not too fussed about a full warm up, you just want to go and enjoy the course. And you just play the most dreadful golf for the first potentially more than five as well
Yeah.
holes where you don't know where the ball's going, you don't know what you're going to do on a tee, and ultimately for what should be a fun game, you're
Mm-hmm.
a nervous wreck.
Yeah, I think a key here as well is trying to leave yourself a little bit more time. If you're not rushing straight out the car, shoes, tying up your laces on the first tee, you can leave yourself half an hour, maybe 40 minutes at a push. I know we're all time pressure and time's a real precious thing for us at the moment, but if we can leave that little bit longer just to kind of take your breath, calm your nerves, hit some shots in the net, have a few swings of a weighted club, whatever it might be, because it's important to you. A lot of us, we're chomping at the bit at the moment to get out there and play golf. And when you actually get out there, you don't want to waste it by just not taking that little bit of TLC, a few minutes either side to help and practice your game before you get out there and play.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the tricky thing is as well, just rocking up into a net and hitting a couple of 8 irons isn't representative of. So what I like to see players do is take a wedge, a mid iron, a long iron, and just get used to hitting those different lengths because that 8 iron swing, when you step up onto the first tee, hit drive and a left with half a wedge, it's not what you've warmed up with at all. So
Yeah.
it's not much of a warm up there. So, like you say, loosen up with that weighted club and then get into just even if it's two balls with as many clubs as you can, just vary it up a fraction.
Yeah, and I think when we do practice on the driving range, we tend to have our favourite clubs. We'll have a few swings with the 60 degree. We'll jump then straight maybe to the 7 irons, skip the 5 irons, jump to the driver. So get used to maybe going odds and evens, so odds and even numbered clubs in your bag, as Joe said, 2 or 3 balls with each club in your bag. And then next practice session, if you did odds, do evens next time, just so you get used to hitting all your clubs in your bag.
Yeah, massively. I think that's a really good point you give there. Something that I see a lot of is, like you say, people like hitting driver. Looks impressive to see it flying through the air. A 40-yard wedge doesn't quite look as good when you can't see it, especially on the range. And I think the other thing is people are so afraid to, dare I say, look silly. So people won't hit wedges. I mean, I went through a point probably just a couple of months before lockdown where I could not strike a wedge the way I wanted to for any amount of money. And you could then go straight back to driver, go, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to look silly in front of the range. But then you get to the course and you're going to look silly anyway. And then it comes the frustration. And I see it with putting all the time. Clubhouse full of people putting green there. Nobody will go and hit 30-foot putts because they could make a mistake and they could miss it. And you learn so much more from that miss than you do potentially the actual 2-footer that you hole or the driver that you hit well, because you're playing to your strengths. And whilst that's a valuable point, you've got to get the heebie-jeebies out of the ones you don't like ultimately.
Yeah, and something we talked about in our previous episode about training aids is that like a security blanket, Joe, would you recommend for people? So if you've got a training aid that you use on the range, take that to the golf course. Not use on the course, but use in your practice before you play on the course.
Yeah, so ultimately what we want to do is make the range as similar to the course as we can, and make the course as similar to the range, so that there's very minimal kind of differences there. So if you warm up with the weighted club on the range, warm up with it on the course. If you do something on the course that you don't do at the range, so for example, I see a lot of people on the course grab 2 clubs, start swinging it, warm up. At the range, they'll hop straight to driver, slice the first 10, and wonder what's happened, when actually it's not representative of what they would do on the course. So it's finding as many similarities as you can.
Yeah, and for me, don't always go for the large bucket of balls when you're practicing on the driving range, because you don't. I'm assuming everybody out there is aspiring golfers want to lower their scores. You don't hit 100 shots on the golf course. Some of our listeners may do, but I know you don't want to keep that number. So why are you having 100 balls? Why don't you go for 70 balls, 50 balls? Because then you're going to be hitting your golf shots with a bit more quality because you've got a bit more time. So you're taking time over that golf shot like you do on the golf course again.
Yeah, we've seen it ourselves within our own practice. We'll go and grab 100 occasionally on a night, and it starts to go a bit dark, go a bit cold, especially through winter. And how many times have we stood there, especially with electric tees on a range, just going, oh, I just need to get rid of this last 20. And it's very, very easy for all that hard work for the first 70, 80 balls to be completely undone with the last 10. So one thing I particularly like, get 50, see where you're at the end of it. Have that bit of quality there, because once again, you have 100, you might only have 40 minutes at the range. And I've never hit 100 balls within 40 minutes at that kind of spacing. So get your 25, get your 50, do effective practice. And I think that's quite an interesting term. So go through your pre-shot routines, change the club is the biggest thing I can say on the range. Do not hit the same club, dependent on your level, more than 3 to 5 times. So for me, for beginner, 5 times is good. Get used to it. Change it to something similar. So if you've gone 7, go 8 or 6. If you're intermediate, hit maximum of 3 balls with 7-iron and make sure they're quality. So if you hit one really good shot with 7-iron, maybe 2, then change it, because you don't need to hit all 3 because you're going to stop learning. So hit 1, correct if you need to, and correct again if you need to. But if not, change to something a little bit further out there. So that's where then you're looking maybe your 4-iron, your pitching wedge, your 60, and really vary it up, because the odds are if you've hit 7-iron, as a mid-handicap golfer, the odds are you're either going to be putting or you're going to be hitting a chip. So that's where I'd encourage people, hit your 150, 160 yard club, hit your 30-yard chip and challenge yourself.
Yeah.
Then maybe go to driver after that, where it would be representative of what you would do on the course.
Mm.
For your elite players, then it's one max.
Yeah.
And that is an absolute must.
Yeah. And I know something that's really helped us in our practice and the way we play is technology. So Top Tracer, it's been a joy. It's made practice for me a lot more pleasurable. I didn't enjoy practicing before kind of Top Tracer came along for me, and it's made it fun for us, Joe, and it's made it competitive for us on the range.
Massively. And I think that is probably the big breakthrough in effective practice.
Mm.
It is making the range play like the course.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously we can't putt, but it puts a specific emphasis on short game and hitting targets. So even if you've got a 10-foot putt, you're maybe hitting an 80-yard or 40-yard pitch to a flag to get it within a specific distance. And we joke about it when we're playing regularly, kind of 81 yards is the number. It's the crimson flag on our range.
Yeah. And
I don't think I've ever seen us stick 81-yard shots as close before using that.
We're deadly. Everybody out there from 81 yards didn't mess with either of us from 81 yards. 85 yards, 86 yards. Oh, no chance. But 81 yards.
Yeah, I'd go for
it. We're on it.
But I think that's the thing, is there's a company out there called Game Like Training as well. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if many people have heard about this, but this is almost that emphasis on exactly what we're talking about, making your training game-like, of how to transfer it across. And they are massively kind of alternate practice, change things up. And if you've got a chipping green or a putting green close to where you're hitting your balls, then go and hit some putts, go hit some clubs and vary your practice. I mean, it's great if you've got a facility with both. So I know my course has got range and a short game area there. So what it's nice to do is go hit a driver, go hit an 8-iron, a chip, and then a couple of putts, because it changes everything up so that you're actually making it like your golf game.
Yeah, how can you do that, Joe, with kind of short game, some putting kind of tips, hints, short game stuff that's going to help people put more pressure on themselves when they're practicing to make it easier when on the course?
Yeah, so for me, I've got this kind of room set up as a putting studio in. And the first thing I'll do, because I'm lazy, I've got a 3-meter mat, and I can't be bothered to go and pick a ball up every time. So I've got a dozen out, you're hitting your putts. Now, what starts to happen after your third putt, you might leave one short. So then half the hole's blocked off, but you'll hit one. If it hits the ball, you'll count it. And then you're left with a massive balls up the putting mat where they've all hit each other. And you're not actually gaining anything at that point. You're just hitting putts that, once again, you could be doing completely the wrong thing and reinforcing it. So for me, from now looking within the next month to get back to golf courses, go down to 2 or 3 balls. And we spoke about phantom holes in the last podcast. And I love these because I position one at long, one at medium, one at short. So what you can do is practice your long putt, practice your medium one, practice your short one, go and pick them up. And what you can also start to spot then is tendencies within a certain putt. So you might find your mid-distance one, your speed might be a little bit too quick. So you can start to improve that as well. But I just think it's too much mass practice. I set my putts at probably 2.5 meters. I've got the mirror out and I will just keep hitting putts and then go and pick 12 balls up. As well, if you focus specifically on 1 or 2 balls on quality putts and go through your pre-shot routine. So line the line up, take your practice strokes, hit your putt, analyze it, then go back in again. Because I think we're all very guilty. It's almost like the electric tee. Bring the putt in, hit the putt. Bring the putt in, hit the putt. And the only time we take a break is after 5 minutes when we go to pick them up. As where individualizing makes it a lot more like the golf course.
Yeah, and I think now let's move to the golf course and talk some kind of structure and some kind of strategy that's going to help people. So my kind of big one, first of all, is if I'm going to Bay Hill behind me at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, I've never played it before, I'm going to have to go and do some research. So go and have a look at the website, go and have a look at the flyovers, go and have a look at the hole by hole, just to familiarise yourself with the course and even with your home course, Joe. I don't know if you've ever done it at both of your courses you're attached to, but score kind of yardage book, gone through, done some mapping, done some clubs off tees, that type of thing as well.
Yeah, so I generally run with 2 yardage books. One's got notes in, one's ready for kind of visuals. So I think if you play a course regularly, grab yourself a yardage book and don't be afraid to deface it. It doesn't have to stay in the condition you bought it in. Get your pen out and start writing notes on. If you play and you dunk your 7-iron in the water from 150 yards, but there's no danger long, pop a note in from that point saying next time hit big because it won't hurt. And you see, the tall players wouldn't do it if it didn't give them an advantage. And I'm sure if you look at, I think it was Mickelson with Bones' yardage book for Augusta is like a novel. It's massive because of all the notes that go on. Admittedly, doesn't need to be like that, but make notes of what goes on in the round and specific points. So if you know you can aim at a bunker and it's not in range, then why scare yourself the next time you come around to it?
And even if your course doesn't do yardage books, I know a lot of courses don't do yardage books now, get yourself a little notepad, a little pocket notepad, and make your own.
Yeah, it's easy enough to do. And the thing is, a lot of people, I know the layout of my courses off the back of my hand. So even if you just write the first, this is the info, you can do it easily without too much kind of going into it, really.
Yeah, because all you need to know a lot of the time is what's the play, where's the miss, where can I miss, what club am I going to hit to kind of get me there, and then maybe a little bit of wind, bit of conditions, because 9 times out of 10 the wind will always be off the right, or it'll be always downwind or in your face. So those little kind of tips will help you as well.
Yeah, massively, and I think that's something that improves with time as well. So you'll start to do it, and eventually, instead of pulling it out your pocket and continually checking it, there will come a point where you go, right, okay, this is the third. I know the wind comes off the left, but I know I can miss it right. So that's all good. I can do that. And you don't have to check it because you start to internalize that. And it's like reading a putt in a scramble. You see it the first 3 times, you're going to know it the 4th, fingers crossed. And that's something that it may not take long to change your thought process into I know what's happening on this hole. You look at pros and they probably know the way Augusta plays already. If they've played it a number of times, you know where you can miss, you know where you can't. And you start to build that knowledge in your own mind then.
Yeah, exactly. And if you do go to other golf courses you've never played before, and you've kind of, as Joe said, scribbled all over the yardage book, keep it, because you'll probably go back there again if you've enjoyed it, you've liked it. Keep it in a shoebox, keep it in your bookshelf, wherever it might be. But just so then when your mates say, "Oh, should we go and play the Brabazon again?" you've got your yardage book and you've got a little bit of advantage over your playing partners as well.
Yeah, I'm going to throw this back to a previous podcast. So there's an app called Golf Shot out there that basically is a rangefinder kind of thing, but it is in a yardage book format. So it's on the phone, you get a layout of the hole, you get your yardages, and you can actually add notes into that. So if you don't want to go out, because let's be fair, yardage books aren't cheap now. For kind of people that don't know, from our perspective, we order in kind of thousands at a time, and they're not always cost effective for clubs, and they can be quite expensive for people to do. So paying £30 a year for that enables you to every yardage book kind of in the world. So you can add notes in really easily to that and have it saved for the next time you play it.
I love that. That's a great tip, great idea, especially with technology now. Utilize it, use it. It's great. And for me, I think it's so important as well to utilize the scorecard when you're playing recreationally. So more using your scorecard as not just a physical gross score. So I've scored a 4. It's did you hit the green in regulation? Did you hit the fairway? Did you get up and down? How many putts did you have? just to kind of monitor your progress as you're going around as well, and to see some light bulb moments like, wow, I've had 36 putts today. I need to work on my putting.
Yeah, I think, like you say, especially on the course, stats are they're massively important, but in people's minds, they're tricky to keep. I know I've heard horror stories about national teams having an hour's work after your round, putting it into a spreadsheet, and it's not what you want to do. The other side of it, you look at some of the apps, kind of strokes gained. You've got to measure how far you are, put all the info in. It's not easy. So I think I alluded it previously, kind of fairway, green, up and down putts, and they're all the stats you need. You can put them into whatever apps after, but just make a note of what clubs you've hit as well. So you can then actually, relating it back, look and go, actually, I hit 5 8-irons. I missed 4 of them to the left. So I need to go and work on that. And then it gives you something that you can start to work on the range that will benefit you on the course rather than just bashing driver.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that's a massive takeaway from tonight, something I've kind of picked up, that it's about replication. So it's about replicating processes that you do on the driving range, and you do the same on the golf course. It's routine, it's structure. I think people have that structure when they're on the driving range to an extent, like you said, 50 balls, and then they get a bit bored and the mind starts to wander. But then on the golf course as well, they start doing different things from what they do in practice. So would you say that's the key from tonight, Joe? It's replicating what you do in both scenarios.
Yeah, I think if you concentrate on the course, concentrate on the range. Because like I say, if people start to get bored after 50, the odds are on the golf course, you're going to get bored after 50 as well. So keeping that and striking quality shots will keep your interest there. So, and especially, like we've said, moving on from clubs. So if you're having a torrid time with pitching wedge, you've just got to hit 3 balls with it. You might be pleasantly surprised. If not, you'll be relieved to get back to your 8-iron. It's not going to bore you on the range. It's going to help you improve. And ultimately, it's something that you can take to the course and become a better golfer for it.
Love it. Absolutely brilliant, Joe. And again, hopefully this has been a little bit different for everybody tonight. The next 2 podcasts are going to be even more different. Instead of mine and Joe's dulcet tones, we're going to have a couple of guests and guests from different golf companies, different backgrounds, and it's going to be quite interesting, Joe, of what we've got coming up.
Yeah, I really enjoyed. So for anyone that listened previous, kind of Fescue and Dunes was very interesting to learn more about them as a brand. I know one of them I am massively excited about. The other one I'm more intrigued to learn on. And I think that's the best thing, is that you can either learn or you can enjoy. And I just hope that everyone enjoys them as much as we're looking forward to recording them.
Cool. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. Thank you out there for watching, if you've jumped on to watch as well. Joe, thank you for your time tonight.
I've loved it. It's a pleasure as always.
Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening, and we'll see you again soon.
Cheers, guys.